What is a monster? A monster is clearly something that identifies something within us that we're unwilling to confront.
The monster is created by humans being illiberal, not being welcoming enough to another way of looking or another way of being.
A monster is everything that a given society holds abhorrent, projected outside of itself.
The zombie is a Caribbean idea in origin. It comes from the slave culture in the 19th and 20th century. A slave is a human without all the rights and aspects of humanity, without control over their own will, without control over their own children, a property of someone else, a thing.
Zombie!
They're very clearly associated with the witch doctor. One of his powers was reputed to be the ability to render rebel slaves invincible or immortal, so that they would commit acts of great bravery during slave rebellions. So the zombie sort of carries these resonances all at once of the rebel slave and of the danger of the slave rebellion, and of a remarkably placid and controlled slave workforce. The zombie and the creature in Frankenstein and several other half-human brute kind of creations are all the sort of speculations on the same thing of what it means to be alive and to be human. Mary Shelley, she probably hadn't ever come across the word zombie, but what she did know about was about the slave rebels. And the book is very careful, Mary Shelley is very careful to play on that distinction between a kind of prejudice against people whose appearance is different for various different reasons, and the creature's own assertion of his natural humanity, because the creature doesn't know he's a monster at first.
The word android was coined long before Frankenstein, in fact, and that was partly to do with the emergence of these new kinds of mechanical toys and automata. Jacques de Vaucanson was a child prodigy who could do anything with clockwork, and in the late 1730s he produced this amazing flute-playing device which could reproduce some of the most difficult human muscular actions in playing the flute. Even more famous was his mechanical duck, which had 4,000 moving parts. The device that we think Mary Shelley probably did see was there were a trio of automata that were shown in Switzerland, in Neuchâtel, called the draftsman, the writer and the musician. The writer could write "I think, therefore I am," this famous supposed demonstration of being a human. So there are these kind of three devices that we think she saw in 1816, so just 2 years before Frankenstein. The automata were very much connected to notions of Enlightenment philosophy, so trying to rethink the very notion of the human. If you could reproduce the human being in a mechanical device, did that mean that actually there was no soul? We are concerned about robots that are too similar, that look like us, that are too familiar, that are uncanny. On the other hand though, robots are also represent the monstrous other, these things that are totally different from us, that are literally inhuman. Automata and robots are emerging at exactly the time that the Industrial Revolution is coming into being in the 1780s, 1790s. So you get the beginnings then of working class movements, Luddites and so on, who are anxious about their labour being replaced. And this is a constant theme in our 200-year history of robotics, really. This sense that actually they are our instruments, they're supposed to enhance our capacities, but actually perhaps in the end they might replace us.
The Golem is a man made from earth and water who is animated by some kind of mystical cantation. Really originates in the Kabbalah, which is a book of Jewish mysticism. That book is a sort of meditation on creation, an effort to try to understand the secrets of creation. In many ways, the Golem is an exact imitation of the human. He's created from clay as God created the first man, and he continues to grow and grow and grow. So it's quite interesting that the Golem in some ways is not monstrous at all. After Frankenstein was written, we see perhaps the influence of Frankenstein the book on the Golem legend itself. So in later elaborations of the story, the rabbi forgets to monitor the Golem in the way that he ought to, and the Golem actually runs amok and threatens to destroy the synagogue. And the rabbi manages to finally get control over him and kill him. At that point, the monstrous aspect of him is very, very clearly the fact that he is a creature with the physical form of a human, but no will and no moral consciousness. And the responsibility for controlling him lies with his maker, and it's his maker who has reneged that responsibility. The rabbi is responsible for the acts of the Golem. The Golem himself has no will and no ability to make judgments. In the same way, Victor Frankenstein is responsible for those monstrous acts of the creature that he made. Late in the 19th century, Jews were increasingly the subject of accusations of ritual murder. And at this point, the Golem legend changes slightly so that the Golem becomes a protector of the Jewish community. And we can even see contemporary versions of that in the figure of Superman, who was created, in fact, in the 1930s by two Jewish cartoonists in America as a kind of protector figure, super protector figure.
The monster, so-called, is an incredibly sympathetic figure, precisely because I think that the humans are the monstrous figures in the text. He gets cast out, therefore becomes this figure of unremitting, machinic vengeance. So there is a sense in which the text kind of flips between an immense sympathy for this creation, that humans actually could be recreated and could be just as sympathetic. And on the other hand, this sense that actually we can't cope with that idea, and therefore we produce our own monsters.
There are comparatively few representations of the Arctic in fiction in the 18th and 19th century. In fact, I can't think of any others. And it's something there about the creature's ability to go beyond the normal human bounds into this white landscape of absolute purity, where Victor Frankenstein can't follow him, showing his kind of superiority in a way, that he's a Superman. He's not a monster.